vision and lack of muscle control.
Hey, you okay?
It's a breakdown commonly faced by astronauts, submariners, and Arctic explorers. Their brains are numb with fatigue, and our world is almost too strange to comprehend. The slowing Earth has a devastating effect on animals too. The migration of most mammals is triggered by the changing length of day. Now, the day is getting longer, not shorter. Some migratory birds die as they fail to fly south and then are frozen as long periods of cold night close in. Other species face the same fate. Caribou, monarch butterflies, zebras, all doomed to extinction on a slowing Earth. As the oceans move to the poles, a new megacontinent is forming at the Earth's middle latitudes. A group of oceanographers in San Francisco is determined to make their way there. These survivors want to start from zero on what used to be the sea floor. It holds more hope for life than staying in a big city. It's a desperate decision, but on this radically altered planet, there are few good choices. In 2.5 years, a gradually slowing world has been completely transformed, and the worst is yet to come. 4 years have passed since the Earth's rotation started to slow. We're spinning at just over 60 kilometers an hour. The sun now stays in the sky for 13 days, followed by 13 days of night. The old concept of 4 seasons is gone. The climate is now defined by a cycle of bright and hot, or dark and cold. In the long nights, the temperatures can plummet to -55 degrees Celsius. Humans struggle to adapt. Most species of animals cannot. Even if they survived the floods and found air to breathe, they're now destroyed by the bitter cold. Animals that hibernate stand a better chance of survival. They're used to going without food for long periods. But their future remains uncertain, as their habitats are either flooded or airless. Plants are another casualty. Vital food crops like corn and wheat need lots of sunlight to grow. Temperate rainforests freeze and never recover. Only the boreal forests of Canada and the northern US are hardy enough to survive the cold and darkness, except they're now underwater. North American cities are now swallowed as the Atlantic and Pacific converge. Toronto, Halifax, Boston. Millions more people in the US and Canada are dead. New York, too, is being engulfed by the new ocean. But the water here is just 100 meters deep. Its skyscrapers only semi-submerged. Chicago, one of the southernmost cities on the Great Lakes, is finally swallowed by the sea. Those who have stayed now leave in panic as seawater begins flooding subways and courses through the city's sewers. Soon, the entire city will be underwater. In a world where the massive oceans continue to move, there aren't many safe places left. Lethally thin air has made nearly all of Africa, Australia, and South America uninhabitable. Near the equator, the air is like being at 10,000 meters, higher than the summit of Mount Everest. Enormous cities lie devastated and empty. But an equatorial continent is rising from where the ocean once was. And there are a few places in this new megacontinent where the air is dense enough to breathe. A ship carrying a group of young explorers is making its way west to start a new human colony on what was once the ocean floor. Their journey is treacherous. GPS doesn't work on a slowing Earth. Even charts are useless as the ocean changes shape all around them. But in this savage, changing world, the weather is increasingly unpredictable. The rotation of the Earth creates constant patterns of east-moving winds in the northern hemisphere and west-moving winds in the southern. This is called the Coriolis effect. As that spin slows, those predictable wind patterns become unstable. New high-pressure systems form and tear across the planet. Ocean storms are rampant and wild. They can last weeks at a time. Weather around the world is changing. 13 days of darkness send waves of freezing cold around the planet.
While here in Miami, we're being blanketed by snow again today as another nighttime storm whips across the country. The blizzard is expected to last another 12 days until the sun comes up.
Places like Miami are not equipped for lashing winter weather. Many houses have no heat, another crippling blow to cities already struggling to endure. And life around the globe is going to get harder still. It's been 4.5 years since the rotation of the Earth began to slow down. It used to turn about 1,600 kilometers an hour Now, it's barely turning at all. The sun stays in the sky for 16 days straight. As the rotation slowed, the oceans of the world flowed toward the poles. Two new oceans have taken shape. Kansas is now right on the coast of the new mighty Northern Sea. It's 16 kilometers deep. About 800,000 square kilometers of the United States is now inhabitable, less than a tenth of its former landmass.
What's going on here, Dan? A little bit.
Settlers have created a habitat for growing food and staying sheltered from the increasingly harsh climate of extreme hot and extreme cold. The new oceans offer the best chance of food. The flooding of continents has made them nutrient-rich, meaning a lot of food for fish. Warm water species died as coastal ecosystems were destroyed, either dried up or flooded when the oceans moved. But many cold water species, such as cod, mackerel, and tuna, survive. Men and women who once farmed now fish where a new ocean meets the Midwestern plains. In the long, cold nights, refugees work in teams, catching fish from the freezing ocean. They take them back to the habitat. They risk their lives in minus 55-degree cold that the body can endure for just a few minutes. Fishing through the ice is not offering enough food for an increasing number of North American refugees. Time is running out. As the spinning of the Earth slows, the blinding snow finally stops. The Coriolis effect caused by spin controls weather, and it's gone. Now, storms are increasingly predictable. Reduced spin produces a more stable weather pattern. But there are still wild temperature swings between the hot days and cold nights. And this stable weather means less precipitation. Rain mostly falls far out on the oceans, without winds to blow storms inland. The occasional daytime rain that does come to the Kansas habitat is stored for the long periods of drought. The situation here is desperate. At sea, the oceanographers who set sail from San Francisco are now shipwrecked on the megacontinent. They scour the ocean floor for whatever they can find to survive. Their choice to live far out in what used to be the sea is risky. Unlike those in Kansas, they only have the resources they brought with them and what they can salvage. But if they succeed, they'll have the largest piece of habitable land on the entire planet. Those who have chosen to stay put in non-sunken cities like Miami face the greatest hardship.
You guys check those boxes out. Let's see if we can find something. You guys come with me. You guys check.
Life here is feral.
Let's get this done.
There's very little to eat. Electricity is unreliable. Clean water is hard to find. There are no food supplies coming in by land or sea. The comforts of technological life are gone. When the resources left behind are exhausted, Miami will have nothing left to live on. Time is running out. With the end in sight, some survivors decide to leave. They must find a place that is not landlocked like Miami. To survive in this bizarre world, we need to be close to water. And the best place is thousands of kilometers away. The oceans are one of the last sources of animal protein on the planet. Mid-Pacific, a new colony takes root. They set up a small base camp for food and shelter. Wind power is harnessed to generate electricity. The seabed's drying up, and agriculture will soon be possible on the edge of the Northern Ocean. But when the darkness comes, the climate stretches human survival to its limit. More than 16 days of freezing temperatures with a bare minimum of shelter on the open megacontinent. And when the world stops spinning completely, more deadly change will sweep Earth. Five years after it started slowing down, the Earth stops spinning completely. The oceans, atmosphere, and climate settle into place. A megacontinent encircles the planet's center. Two vast oceans run from the poles to the middle latitudes. All land near the equator is lethally airless. More than half of the new continent is uninhabitable, too high above sea level. The Earth is not spinning, but it still orbits the Sun. So from now on, it will be light for half the year and dark for the other half, as the Sun is on the other side of the Earth. The old concept of day and night is dead. From now on, it's an annual pattern. 6 months of sunrise and day, 6 months of sunset and night. The sun casts a withering spotlight on the Earth. Under its glare, temperatures soar to 55 degrees Celsius. Everything in its path is battered by powerful winds. On the edges of the sun's spotlight, the effects are less deadly. On the new megacontinent near Hawaii, it rains in torrents for a month. In the same way that a hurricane creates storms thousands of miles away. The rain provides enough water for the rest of the year. Others are not so lucky. Those living in Kansas are thousands of miles north of the sun's blistering path. They now discover, in the stable weather of a still Earth, that it will never rain here again. The settlers cannot even desalinate the oceans for water. With the electricity supply collapsed, there is not enough energy. The world now has one weather pattern, all controlled by the sun. No more winds, no more pressure systems. And with the long, dark night, the final blow. The nighttime temperature plummets to minus 55 degrees Celsius, almost 20 degrees colder than the average Arctic winter. The new polar oceans freeze and stay frozen year-round. On a still Earth, those living in Kansas are doomed. The ocean colony in the mid-Pacific is just 1,700 kilometers from the edge of the sun's path. They can fish without having to break through the ice. A year passes. More than 6.5 billion people are dead. A few wandering survivors find their way to one of the last places on Earth where people can breathe the air and survive the climate. The cycle of darkness and light, cold and hot, wet and dry, repeats and continues for the rest of time. Suddenly slowing our rotation creates a brand new planet. It will never happen like this. But still, it reveals the delicate balance that keeps our planet alive.